Julie Robenheimer will be joining us shortly from Prague for a couple reasons.
Because she's Julie mostly?
Yeah, right, because she's just Julie and she's in Prague.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And it just happens to be where she watched the World Championships take place, and I've got to stop calling it the World Cup. But it's the World Championships, and also because she's the only one who knows who the hell Dave Hakstol is. Just kidding. No, Kevin, you know him too, but
I'll save my bile until Julie comes.
Yeah,
on.
you got to save your bile for Julie for sure. He doesn't have bile for Julie, so to speak.
No. No, for the subject that Julie is being brought on to talk about.
Mike's gonna rip into the World Championship, so you guys want to stick around for that? That'll be
shocking.
You don't like the World Championships?
No, found a flaw in it. Don't reveal.
Okay,
it's a teaser. We gotta keep people on, Mike. Why you don't like the World Championships? Why you think this is the worst thing ever for hockey, and why you think that all the people who went there are shams? And
no, it's not that. It's a teaser. We're teasing. Later in the show, watch Mike lose his gourd.
Yeah. In other words, it's a Monday here at the HockeyBuzzcast.
Yes, that's like yesterday. It's gotten warmer in Buffalo, and in the summer, the tradition in Buffalo is to go to the local ice cream establishments, and they were all very busy yesterday. And there was one that I went to at about 9 o'clock at night that ran out of chocolate custard. And I'm standing in the parking lot eating my vanilla cone, and this lady is in the car, and her husband comes back with a vanilla cone, and she wanted chocolate, and she lost her mind and threw the vanilla cone out the window and says, "Go get me chocolate." I mean,
nice.
It was like a Greek tragedy and reasons for divorce.
That's an incredible tale there.
That is really incredible tale.
Get people all worked up about it always amazes me.
I don't like chocolate. Huh?
You don't like chocolate either?
I don't like vanilla. That's what she said.
Oh, okay. I was thought you were talking. You were claiming you didn't like chocolate there.
Speaking of of ice cream, I saw a story. It's probably well over a year ago now, that said we are heading toward the extinction of the ice cream sundae. That today's generation of youngsters, the freezes and the blizzards, and they have not embraced the sundae concept. So that we will someday, as this group gets older, that they will, just like we as older people said, yeah, I'd like to have a strawberry sundae. They will say, get me a blizzard or a whatever they're.
Oh, the actual term sundae, because a blizzard is almost a sundae. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, not really.
Not really. No. The concept of a sundae being, a scoop or two or three of ice cream and then covered in whatever the topping of your choice is not the same as mixing it all up and putting gummy worms in it or whatever else.
You go to Dairy Queen and you get a vanilla a hot fudge sundae with vanilla ice cream and hot fudge and the whipped cream and the nuts and the cherry on top. That's not the same thing as a blizzard, because a blizzard is just the vanilla ice cream with whatever topping you put on and all blended up.
Gummy worms or M&Ms.
Gummy worms. That sounds disgusting. But
well, you see those all the time, so they must.
Oh, yeah, you do. It reminds you of the Simpsons product, gum and nuts, together again.
Do you think it's the fact that a traditional hot fudge sundae like I just described?
Julie, hold on one second.
Okay.
We're talking Sundays. And the demolishment of the ice cream sundae, Julie, just in case you're curious.
Yeah.
Oh.
Going the way of buggy whips in terms of,
I mean, could it have anything to do with the fact that a traditional hot fudge sundae is probably about 200 grams of sugar, and in a society that's going towards half of it?
No, because we just talked about the blizzards are the taking over for Sundays, and blizzards are way, way worse. I mean,
I guess.
We would never put the kind of things that in a sundae that people put in blizzards.
My fondness to two things I'm going to bring up about Sundays.
Yes,
my fond memories as a kid, and the three people who are old like me who watch this podcast will remember this. that Kresge's, which was what we refer to as the dime store, which is also a phrase that we don't hear all the time
No.
anymore. The dime store.
Dime
They would
store
always.
has a different meaning these
It
days.
does.
That's a dime bag, and I'm familiar with that. I went to college in the 70s. Anyway, when you went to Kresge's and they had the counter, and if you weren't ordering a cherry Coke, you would get a sundae, and they would have balloons in the back, and you popped the balloon, and it would tell you what you would pay for that sundae. It was always sort of a mystery. It could be up to, like, I don't remember the prices, but up to 24 cents. But if you pick the right balloon, you might get one for 7 cents. Something like that. And the other thing, which was the Tasty Freeze that was near my home, which was the Dairy Queen of Wayne, Michigan. It was called the Tasty Freeze.
Right.
They always opened up on the opening day of spring training. So it was always a huge celebration because the Tigers would be down in Lakeland opening up, and you could go down and get your sundae. It would always be in February.
February, which is not warm in Michigan.
No, it is not warm, but it's the opening day of spring training, so it was time to celebrate. It was official.
I like that. It's celebrating baseball. It's cool. It's very cool.
All right, let's
All right,
talk.
Let's get going here, Julie. Thank you so much for joining us from Prague. Your connection's pretty good so far, so we'll see.
I hope so.
We can hear you pretty well, so we'll see what happens. I know. I thank you for jumping off the streets of on your touring day here to do this. Very much so.
You're welcome.
It wasn't like I got a guilt trip or anything about that.
Well, the funny part is I had it all planned out. I was like, okay, so I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And then you're like, hey, can you do the show? And I'm like, but that means I can't do this.
Well, you're very important.
So I worked it out. But that's why I was a little late. I had a little snafu with the metro system. So
no problem. No problem at all. No problem. All right, let's get going here.
One of the most beautiful cities in the world.
I know. That's why I was excited to have the day, and I'm going to go to the zoo tomorrow.
Guilt trip.
Yeah. Well, no, Julie's a trusted trooper, so we appreciate you coming in. We'll try to let you get back.
I'm going back out later, so no worries.
Good. All right, we'll do that. All right, here we go.
It is 8 o'clock at night there, so.
Yeah, right. That's right. 7, right?
No, 7. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
Here we go. Okay, so we'll introduce this. We'll just do Mike and then Kevin, and then I will introduce you, Julie, since you're in another country, and I'll actually give you an introduction. Here we go. Ready? I know. Consider yourself special. It's the.
I always do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I didn't have to. Not that I have to tell you that one.
You to the punch there, Julie.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have to warn you on that one. All right, ready? Here. It's the 18th of March.
No, May.
May.
All right, there we go. That's good enough. It's May. Here we go. Ready? Smiles, everyone. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, May 18th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen, USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com or Alpha Geek Radio or listening on Alpha Geek Radio, wherever you are today. And where our lovely Julie Robenheimer is today is in Prague still, from having spent time over there at the World Championships. How are you, Jules?
I'm wonderful.
Awesome. You have a better connection in Prague than you do South Jersey. I just want to say that. Just throw it out there.
Well, they're awesome in Prague. I don't know what to say.
So there you go. I guess that's the thing. So we got so much to talk to Julie about, because not only were we going to just have her on to talk about the World Championships, which were phenomenal, but now a person that you know really well. Let's start there, because that's actually the news of the hour. The Flyers went off the board here today and kind of surprised everybody and went into the college ranks, which is always where Julie likes to dwell. And this is so Dave Hakstol, which was hired by Ron Hextall. So if you're keeping track at home, that's Hakstol hired by Hextall to be the next Flyers coach. And everyone in Philadelphia, Julie, wants to know who the hell is and what's the deal with this? Why did the Flyers go this way, you think?
Well, I have long said that there are many coaches in college that would make excellent NHL coaches. And a lot of them, for whatever reason, whether it's lack of opportunity or more so they just like the college ranks, they haven't gone. I think the last coach to go was George Gwozdecky, who's an assistant coach for Tampa, and before him was David Quinn, who became an assistant coach with Colorado, and then their head coach for their AHL affiliate before returning back to BU as their head coach. So it's just one of those things where a lot of college coaches just like coaching in college. Dave Hakstol, though, he is very, very meticulous in his preparation. He's a very no-nonsense guy. Getting that guy to crack a smile is a monumental feat, and if you happen to do it, you should write it down on the calendar.
Right.
He's just very focused, very intense. If you talk to his players, they can tell you what his different facial Hakstol to English dictionary, they call it.
Gotcha.
And it's just he can say a lot just by giving you a stare. But I will say his players absolutely love him. They not only want to play well for themselves, but they trust him in knowing that he's done his preparation to know what the best plan of attack is for them, that they just buy into it and they do whatever he asks of them, and they normally find success. I mean, a lot of people are harping on the fact that he's not won an NCAA championship, and to me, I equate winning an NCAA championship to the same as winning a world championship here. One save can make or break you, and that's not to say that you didn't deserve it or you weren't capable or whatever. It just that day it didn't happen. It's not a 7-game series like in the NHL, so. It's a one-game situation, and it doesn't always work out. But in the 11 seasons that he was coach at North Dakota, he made the NCAA tournament all 11 times, and he made it to the Frozen Four 7 of those 11 times.
Yeah.
So this isn't like he just kind of squeaked in. No. He did a really, really good job coaching those teams, and he's produced a handful of incredibly talented NHL players. So, I mean, a lot of people, like, when it first came out, they're like, oh, who's this nobody? And I was like, no. If you're calling him a nobody, that's more of a reflection on you than it is on him, because this man definitely has paid his dues and is so well respected by his players, by fellow coaches, obviously by scouts and GMs and directors of player development that entrust him with developing their prospects. So he's earned this opportunity, and I, for one, am very excited to see him have it, and more importantly, to have a front row seat to it, being in Philadelphia. Yeah. So I'm very excited for him and what the future holds for the Philadelphia Flyers.
It's always a bonus when someone gets hired by the city you're in.
That's true.
There's no question about that. That's just that's a real nice thing to happen. Well, the press conference was interesting, Julie. I'm sure you didn't get a chance to see it over there, but it was
no, I didn't.
It was good.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I will. I'll do that now, just briefly. But Hakstol looked more relaxed than he's ever looked in a Flyers press conference. It was as if this is the first thing Hakstol did that he looked really confident about. That just not that he hasn't been confident in the past, but I think he took on a situation with Berube that wasn't really his. He took on a team that wasn't really his. But this is the first real Hakstol thing.
That's exactly right.
And he went, and they had Ed Snyder and Bill Meltzer was there, and obviously they asked the question, which is really good. He went to Ed, and hats off for Bill for asking Ed. He says with Hexy right there, he says, Hakstol, obviously Hexy's going out on a limb here and making this move. This is bringing in a college coach. How does that make you feel about your hiring of Ron Hextall? And Ed Snyder's like, so much better. Can't even tell you. That's what he said. So much better. I love when guys. I was this way, and I love when guys go out and they go with their gut and they make a move that's bold. And they do what they want to do, and I'm convinced that this proves that Hextall's the right person and that this coach is going to be the right coach. And so it was kind of an interesting. It was one of the more positive press conferences. Huge hiring coaches usually are, but this was pretty impressive. I thought. Kevin, I wanted your thoughts on Hakstol real quick.
Well, I think it's a great move actually.
Yeah.
He has done some checking on him, and he's very well respected, as Julie pointed out. I think he's perfect for this team. Like, this team needs the right kind of coach, and it needs a tough coach, which he is. It needs a disciplinarian, which he is. And I think it also needs a teacher coach. I think the future of the Flyers is heavily dependent upon the maturation of players like Couturier and Braden Shen, and there's some of their prospects, Lawton, Morin, the defenseman who escapes me,
Yeah,
Gaspierre. Those guys are crucial, I think, to the future of the Flyers. And this is a guy who has developed Jonathan Taves, Matt Green, T.J. Oshie. He's had 20 players under his tutelage. He's accustomed to looking at the sapling and envisioning the oak. And I think he's going to have to do that with the younger players there. But I also think he is in his mid 40s. He'll be able to deal with the veteran players as well. He, as Julie mentioned, he's no nonsense as well. And I think this is a huge day for college hockey. Also, Julie mentioned, there's been a lot of actually assistant coaches who have made the jump, but it's been 28 years since a head college coach has stepped into behind the bench. I think this is a big move for college hockey. He's the 4th overall, and then Harkness was the 1st in 1970, going from Cornell to the Red Wings, and then followed by Badger Bob Johnson. 12 years later, the Calgary Flames, and then Herb Brooks. Now, when Herb Brooks did it in '87, he had already been an NHL coach before, and then of course Glenn Sonmore and Kelly, the father of David Kelly of Hollywood fame and television fame, moved from Boston University to the Hartford, I guess it was New England Whalers when he moved in there. But so there were some coaches there, but it's been a very long time. So this is a very important day, I think. And considering that 30% of the NHL players are now college players, it was obviously long overdue.
Yeah, the thing is that if you look at the NBA as a comparative, there's always a question mark with these big name college coaches, guys like Billy Donovan. I know Mike Krzyzewski has toyed with the idea of going to the NBA. John Calipari, of how what they do transfers to a professional league. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. With guys like Rick Pitino. We've only, as Kevin said, we have only three previous coaches who have gone from college to the NHL. Hakstol's record seems to, be something that would be conducive to an opportunity to be an NHL coach. It's just there's not a track record there of NCAA coaches going to coach in the NHL, and maybe this will be a trend because there are definitely coaches out there who deserve this opportunity, but he is the first in a long time. So it'll be very interesting to see. Also, the thing is, we really didn't hear, in spite of the connection, and a lot of people thought that there would be a connection between the Flyers and Mike Babcock. There really wasn't a lot of smoke when it came to Babcock's name being attached to the Flyers, and I think you had an inkling that something was going to happen in terms of not a typical name being named the Flyers coach, but nobody had Hakstol as the guy that was going to Philadelphia.
No. And we got Kevin back. Julie's going to be jumping back in a second. She just had an issue with her computer. She texted me, so I thought for a second there everybody was just bailing on Mike and I. Thought we were that no one wanted to hang with us anymore. Kevin and Julie left within a matter of seconds. But yeah. Well, what I was told, and this is this incredibly silly dance, and I want to talk about the dance for a second. Because I was at the bank today, my bank person knows that I cover hockey, and he says, "What's the deal with this Flyer signing? This coach, what's the deal with that?" And I'm like, "Well, you know what it is? It's this ridiculous carousel where you have this player-friendly coach versus a taskmaster coach, right? And you have a taskmaster for a while and you succeed because they're working really hard, but the players get tired of that and then they get rebellious, and then you have to fire him because the players aren't responding anymore, and then the players respond really well to a friendly coach for a while because it's a relief to have a player-friendly coach, and then that doesn't work, and then you go back to a taskmaster because they start to take advantage of the friendly coach, and this is the talk to the tick. You know what I mean? This is Berube was the player-friendly coach, Laviolette was the taskmaster. And now here we are again with another taskmaster. I mean, one person told me that the Flyers, if they could have, would have hired Mike Keenan. Like they wanted that this is the kind of coach they wanted, and they got it, Kevin. I mean, this. What is it about this position that we see this back and forth all the time?
Yeah, no, and it is time-honored tradition. And it's as I've said before, it's I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm a euchre player, and the strategy in euchre is that you go next. If somebody turns down spades, you go clubs, and that's exactly what we do in euchre, and that's what they do in the NHL. And obviously it does make some sense. When you've had Tortorella, for example, in Vancouver, and then you follow him up with a much nicer coach, the response is usually favorable. And then when there's been a guy who's been too nice, it's time to whip that team back into shape because they've gotten a little lax in their preparation. So you go harder. So I mean, there is some logic to it. It does seem to work, and if it wasn't something that people had seen results from, they wouldn't do it.
No, and that's the bottom line. I mean, but it really makes hockey players look like completely manipulatable idiots. Like, I mean, they should be better than this. I mean, these are professional hockey players, and it's just all you're doing is basically taking a mean teacher and adding a nice teacher, and then back to a mean teacher, and that's it.
But it's really it's the same it's human nature. I mean, if you're in a business world, it's the same thing. If you're working in a large office and if the boss is too nice, people take advantage of that. And then so they bring in a taskmaster, as you call it. And then then everybody dislikes the boss and everybody's watching their P's and Q's, and so it gets out of hand, morale is bad, and then so you bring in a nicer regime, and suddenly the productivity goes up because everybody's happy, the morale is higher. I mean, I think this is just sort of kind of human nature, and the way we all tend to operate is you need enough. It's like parenting. Like you got to push your kids just enough to get them to explore the limits of their abilities, but you also can't push them so hard that they rebel.
Yeah, and that's
so.
True.
It's it's complicated. The trick is to find the proper response. Like right now, a guy that I see, actually there's two guys, and they're in the same series. Alain Vigneault and Cooper, to me, are very similar in that, I think they're both guys that can push the buttons a little bit and get people stirred up, but I think they're very likable guys. I think guys respond to their coaching styles because they like playing for them. And some players respond out of intimidation and fear, and some, the stick or the carrot, and it's.
I think the most successful coaches are the ones who can wear the black hat and the white hat. I mean, if you're one type of coach, eventually your window will close because after a while, players will tune you out. I
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree, but I think the thing about this is, Mike, that I think what changes that is if you have a player on the team or players on the team that are leaders that can kind of help the coach through that process. I think that's the most important thing. I think that's what the best coaches have figured out, right? That I need to have guys like that, and that's Hitchcock's thing, right? And it doesn't always work, but like Hitchcock in Philly had Keith Primo, in St. Louis had David Backes. He's got a guy who's he can be a taskmaster, but he's got a friendly guy who's going to be able to help a popular player, and that I think is that's why Hitch does it, because Hitch knows he's going to burn out the players, so he's bringing that guy in to do it, and if he loses that player, he loses the team, so he knows he's got to keep that player going, Well,
and here's the bottom line: you just never can predict, who's going to be successful and who's not at the NHL level. I mean, let's look at Yves Boucher, who came on and was considered to be the next great coach, came out of the American Hockey League, and didn't really last in Tampa Bay. It didn't work. He was too much for the players. And then let's look at a guy like Cooper, who was a similar type perspective. Came out of the AHL, was the hot property, and he's come in and he's been the toast of Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it's so true.
But the ironic thing with that, Kev, is not only did they change the coach in Tampa. The only players that are left from when Boucher was head coach to what Cooper is Stamkos and Victor Hedman. Everybody else is different. So they changed not only the coach, but the entire team as well.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you just don't know. Like Ned Harkness, obviously I was a fan when Harkness came to Detroit, and the darkness with Harkness is what people called it. It was just a horrible period in Red Wings history where things went south, and he brought in a lot of different ideas, and he brought in a lot of European style hockey. Well, you can actually make a case, and Bob Duff and I did in a book that we did on the Red Wings, that he was merely just ahead of his time, that some of the stuff he was talking about are things now that are commonplace, in the NHL.
Yeah.
It was just too early for him to bring it in. So, had Harkness, my point would be, if Harkness came along now, he'd be considered maybe a brilliant coach. And why did Scotty Bowman? Why was he a great coach?
Yeah.
And the one thing about Scotty, I will say, that is he evolved over time.
Yeah.
Like me, that's how coaches remain, or at least get join the pantheon of great coaches, and that is they have to evolve with the times. Like, he wasn't nearly the same style of coach by the time he got to the Red Wings than he was when he was the dictator of the Montreal Canadiens. He just evolved. He realized players were changing, and he needed to change.
Yeah, no, I agree. And Julie, what they kept talking about in the press conference is exactly what Kevin's saying there. That they think that this coach at North Dakota runs an NHL style team, which is some of them even said that that's why he hasn't won in college. So he's really running an NHL program in North Dakota, and that he is all about speed. And the Flyers feel like the game is getting faster and faster and faster. And they are, like you're saying, Kevin, so this is an evolution for them. They went to a guy who is all about speed. And you've seen this, obviously, Jules.
Yeah, well, one of the things that is interesting, and you have the Flyers, is they like to talk about being relentless, but they don't actually have a system that allows that. So when they sit there and they say relentless, they just mean want hard work, consistent, persistent hard work.
Right.
But that's not really the definition of relentless. And Coach Hakstol, their butts off. They may not win every game, although they do win more than most, but they are no doubt the hardest working team. So it's one of those things where they know that if skill doesn't work out for them that night, they know that the hard work and the effort is going to be their plan B, and 9 times out of 10 that's going to keep them going and give them a chance to win every single night. So, I mean, if you think about it, we all like to talk about how BC has small, speedy forwards. Well, you should check out some of the forwards that they have in North Dakota, because it's very, very similar. And he loves the speed game. He loves the transition game. He also loves big bodies that love to do the dirty work in the corners. And if you are able to put together a team within that system, and that's the team that I think that Ron Hextall wants to put together, it's going to work. Yeah. So if you have like minds working in unison, which I think you're going to have here. I mean, and a lot of people are like, oh, this is, you just pluck this guy off the street. But no, I mean, Ron Hextall's son, Brett, was a student athlete at North Dakota for 3 years. And so their relationship goes back, I'm going to say, at least 6 to 7 years at this point.
That's what he said. He said it was 8 years ago, maybe, even?
Yeah. It's probably 8 years since he's been recruited.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a long-standing relationship, and he knows inside and out what kind of coach Dave Hakstol is.
Right, because he's heard it from his son.
This is just a random hiring.
Yeah, it's definitely not a random hiring. And so before we lose you, I want to make sure you're coming through great and clear. I want to talk about the World Championships too, because we got to get to that.
Sure.
But thanks so much for joining on both of these things. From where we sat over here, we were talking about it a lot. This is like as close to an Olympic World Championships as you can get. It just felt like there was such. I mean, obviously when Sidney Crosby shows up, everything changes, right? But there was more than that. I mean, what was it like over there? Oh no. Darkness.
Olympic atmosphere.
Yeah. Yep.
Are you good?
Yeah, we're back. I
Okay.
think we got you again. Sorry about that.
Okay, good. It really was very much like an Olympic atmosphere. I mean, in Prague, it was heavily dominated by the Czechs. There were a lot of Swedes, and there were a lot of Canadian fans here as well. Over in Ostrava, where I was mostly with Team USA, the home crowd changed on a game-by-game basis. If Finland was playing, the rink was completely jam-packed with Finns. If Russia was playing, jam-packed with Russia. If Slovakia was playing, holy crud, even the outside was packed. So, I mean, it was just really a fun environment to be a part of. And then as far as the competition goes, I think this is probably the deepest that this tournament has ever been. Just level of competition, and I mean, obviously you had teams like Canada, like the United States, like Sweden, like Finland, that did really well and won, more than most as expected. But those games were incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
Even in the games that were, I mean, they were late. They were close late. And that didn't really start to unravel until the final, 10 minutes of regulation. So, it was really very exciting to be a part of, and to get to watch live. And I will say, I'm going to reiterate what Renee Fassel said yesterday in terms of the amount of beer that was sold versus 0 incidents between fans. There was nothing in terms of police having to be called or anybody having to be kicked out or anything. There literally was no home after the gold medal game. I posted some videos on Instagram because it was just so much fun.
Yeah.
But I went into the metro station, and there are these fans, and they're jumping and chanting the song that they sing in the stadium and jump up and down, and just bananas. And it was fun because it was the Czechs, and then like a whole bunch of drunk Finns joined in too, and they're singing and they're dancing and everything's going fun, and then the train comes and it just continues on in the train, and on one side of the train there's a whole bunch of Russians that are pretty pissed off that all these people are like making so much noise. So the Russians decided that if you can't beat them, join them. So they started singing some Russian songs, and so then you had Finns kind of going in between. My little name tag says USA, so the Czechs start chanting USA, USA. It was just like super fun. And it was just like a great atmosphere, and obviously with the sellout crowd and all of the positives that the teams had in terms of feedback for how they were treated and how logistics was handled and everything like that. I would not be surprised to see Czech Republic awarded this tournament in the not too distant future, and I think they are actually in the running for, I think it's 2018 is the next one to be awarded, so definite possibility.
That's awesome. That's awesome stuff, Jules. I love that. And Team USA, let's talk about Team USA for a second, because that was incredible, obviously, and Kevin was covering it closely as well. There's a lot of guys who said no to this tournament that I think regretted saying no to this tournament at the end of the day. Like, do you get that sense, Jules?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, a lot of people, and I will say that I think it had to do with the fact that they had 5 college kids, and they thought that USA was kind of mailing it in. But at the same time, I don't think those players really knew how talented these 5 college kids were, and what they could bring to the team. And in talking to Jim Johansson, he's before the tournament even started, he was like, Julie, it's like, I know that a lot of people think we are not here to win. And he goes, but we wouldn't have these players on this team if we didn't think they gave us a good chance to win every single game. So, he's like, we've done our homework, and every time we came back to say, should we bring this guy? Can he help us win? The answer was yes and yes. So why shouldn't we bring them? And then that's why when they went to the NHL and, people were not all that interested, they said it's better this way. And Jim Johansson even said, he says, if I have to convince a player to get on the plane, I don't want him here because he's not going to play for me. Yeah, he's just going to be here. And he's like, so I want a guy who maybe needs to ask his wife if he can leave for 3 weeks and leave them with the kids or whatever. He's like, but other than that, if a guy can't say yes to me right away, I don't want him on the team.
Yeah.
And so that's when, they had tested the waters to see who might be interested in joining this group of college kids, and realized that they needed to go in a different direction. And that's when they started targeting players like Matt Hendricks and Trevor Lewis, who don't have to be the superstar, because that was the challenge. Is you've got these two centers in Dylan Larkin and Jack Eichel who are going to be number 1 and number 2, and are you willing to be number 3 and number 4? And that was the biggest challenge. And so he said we needed to find guys that were willing to sit, that were willing to accept their role, whatever that may be, and play as a team. And so that's when they started, looking for the players that they ultimately ended up with. And, for me, I thought it was a great way to do it, because there was not one, quote, superstar attitude, whatever sort of cancer you want to call it in a locker room. This was a team that came together very, very quickly, and it had a lot to do with the character of the players that were on this team.
That's interesting. Kevin, what are your thoughts on what Julie's saying?
Well, I think I agree with that. It's a chicken and egg situation. They have the college kids because they knew they were going to have, trouble. Ideally, you'd like your world championship national team to be, the top players from your country. But, we've had trouble getting players. As I've said before, I think it's a testimony to guys like Crosby and Giroux and Sagan and Duchesne, that they're willing to go over there. Alex Ovechkin, Evgeny Malkin. Malkin was so beat up at the end of the NHL season, and yet, he signed up to go over and play. They put a lot of emphasis on playing for their national teams. And in the U.S., it's been a bit of a struggle. So when you have premium college players like they have, this was a special circumstance. It was the year when they had 4 or 5 guys that they really felt were ready to compete. And if you look at it, the Predators would like to have signed Vasey out of Harvard. Dylan Larkin is said to be ready to jump to the NHL now. He's at Michigan. Riley has already signed his papers. He's out the door. He's going to become a free agent. So, and Eichel, of course, is going to be on the Sabres next season. So these are all special players that are able to play, and they're skilled players. But to get a guy like Trevor Lewis to come and and for him, it's a good deal, because he played on the number 1 line over at for USA at the World Championships, and he's a role player for the LA Kings. So this was an opportunity for him to become a top player, to get the the top minutes. So I think some of the guys get it and some don't. You have the opportunity. You can bring your wives and family over. And I agree with Julie. This was a chemistry team. But I think the other thing it says is that the U.S. hockey program has reached the point that whatever team they put together is good enough to compete. Like, we've made the mistake in 2013. It was very similar, different style of team, but it was similar in that if you looked at that roster, you said, boy, I don't know, And they ended up getting a bronze medal out of the deal. But when you can come together and you have the right chemistry and you have enough skill to get the puck in the net, as this team did, then clearly it was the right decision.
It is something else.
I will also say that I think the saving grace for this team was the outstanding play of Connor Hellebuyck.
Yeah.
And it was funny because, I didn't think Connor should have left after a sophomore season. I would have. Maybe it was just kind of selfish on my part, wanting to see him play in college more. But he played this past year 65 games in the American Hockey League for the Ice Caps in St. John's, and so many people in talking to the players. What do you think about your goaltender? First words out of their mouth, I don't know anything about him. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I don't even know. And then one guy was like, I don't even know where he played, and so truly, they just didn't know anything about him.
was going to be the goalie, I think, because he just had more time in.
You mean Jack Campbell?
Or Jack Campbell, I'm sorry,
Right.
Jack Campbell.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, well, a lot of people did think that and that's why, Coach gave him the start against Russia. He said, well, we got to get him into a game. He's got the most international experience, so why not? And he played a great game, threw up a dud against Belarus, but had a great game against Russia. And I mean, honestly, I cannot say enough about Connor, and I am so thankful that other members in the media saw that and voted him to the media all-star team, because I think he totally deserved it. And it's just one of those things where he made a name for himself. I don't think there's one hockey fan that doesn't know who Connor Hellebuyck is at the moment.
Well, there always has to be a skunk at the garden party, and let it.
Yeah,
be.
I thought Mike was going to come in and tell us. So you're gonna shine on this parade that we're talking about this wonderful stuff. Go ahead, Mike.
And the thing is, I thought the hockey was compelling. I thought that all the things that Julie and Kevin mentioned were dead on correct. And I was watching these games, but I think the NHL and the IIHF made a big blunder on the weekend. And I mean, I was searching for the U.S.-Russia game on Saturday.
Okay.
And I know, but let me get my point out.
All right. All right.
Is the fact that I had to go to the NBC app. So instead of hundreds of thousands of people watching this game on NBC Sportsnet, instead of watching Premier League soccer, we had to watch it on the NBC app, and that meant that dozens of people were watching it. So the opportunity to watch a great game was there. And Canada-Russia was the same thing. You could watch it in Canada on TSN, but you couldn't watch it in the States if you wanted to watch it, because they don't seem to think that this has the footprint. And I think it does.
Pause. You are incorrect in that thinking. Okay? It was the same thing, because I will say the same thing happened in Canada. Canada could not watch USA-Russia either. Both were because of the Premier League. The Premier League has a solid contract that they cannot be bumped. So when you say the NHL screwed up, the NHL had nothing to do with this. It was 100% the IIHF and allowing their broadcast partners to. And it wasn't just this game either. It was every game on Saturday and Sunday.
Well,
every single game.
Well, in Philadelphia, we had it on here, and it was weird. That was the weird thing about it. In some markets, it was on. Like, we had Comcast Sportsnet played it here.
Because so many people complained about it that they finally said okay and allowed their regional networks, Comcast Sportsnet in Philadelphia, Comcast Sportsnet in the Bay Area, Comcast Sportsnet New England, wherever they have a Comcast Sportsnet, carried it.
It was
which stuck again for me, because although I'm in that area, I don't get Comcast Sportsnet because I don't use Comcast as my cable provider.
Well,
right. Yeah, you were.
I'm lumping in the NHL because of the Saturday and Sunday afternoon games. I mean, I think
the NHL did screw up by putting their games in the afternoons here.
Yeah,
that I agree with you, because that also played into this whole conspiracy thing, Julie, because you have I
agree. I think the NHL games should have been at 3:00. Yeah,
or at night. I mean, I just think
it's the NBC's call on those games, though. That's why they pay $2 billion.
Yeah.
Right, and then NBC is also the provider for the World Championship. So the NBC is not going to put Canada-Russia up against the Ducks and Blackhawks, because Canada-Russia is going to beat that game. I mean, that game right there had a good chance of beating Ducks and Blackhawks.
And the other problem that I have, and this has been long the case in with the World Championships, and I know I'm probably just spouting off, and it's never going to change. But I have a problem, and I give Alex Ovechkin all the credit in the world for going after a grueling 7-game series against the Rangers to hop on a plane and to fly over and to play for Russia. But you know what? I don't think he should be able to. When you have a Team USA, did Team USA have any players added on after the elimination of the second round? I don't think so.
Charlie
Coyle.
There's two things here. One is I want to get back to the TV thing, because I'm 95% sure that the gold medal game was aired live on NBC Sports Network. One.
No.
I was on Comcast Sportsnet here, Joe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was on Comcast.
On the TV listings, obviously I was in Prague, but on the TV listings, it only game they listed.
Yeah, it's directly going against.
Now the second part.
Go ahead.
As a national federation, you have 23 roster spots to fill, 20 skaters, 3 goaltenders, and you can choose not to fill them, and that's what Russia did. So Russia went with only 19 skaters and left
those spots open.
Yeah, and I think that it makes
add another player. That said, so did Czech Republic. Czech Republic added Thomas Plekanec after he was eliminated. On the very same day that
we're losing Julie a little bit.
Ovechkin was added too. Their rights to take it off and put Alex Ovechkin in. No, and it's the same way the United States filed an incomplete roster as well. They only had 18 skaters to start the tournament, and then they added Charlie Coyle, and then they eventually added Alex Lyon, who was just going to be a practice goalie, and then made him the official third goalie on the roster halfway through the tournament.
I just have a I know it's an equal playing field. I know that all the different countries do that with their rosters. It's something within the rules. I don't think it should be within the rules because Alex Ovechkin parachutes in, plays in one game in the round robin portion of the tournament, goes in, scores a key goal against the U.S. in the medal round, and the U.S. who are 7-1, they essentially get beaten by a guy who's been there for one game. Honestly, I think what it should be is either they start this tournament a couple weeks later after the second round of the NHL playoffs, just to allow everybody who's available to be available, or they cut off the roster and they say, whoever's available now, that's great. Whoever's not available, see you next year.
Kevin, your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a world championship. So you get whoever's eligible in your country should be able to play whenever they can. So I don't have any issue with it. I mean, it's a tradition. It's been going on forever. The Americans have done it in previous tournaments as well, where they've brought in. I can't remember who. Maybe Julie remembers, but it was 3 or 4 years ago when there were guys on their way over hoping to get in, but they lost and they had to turn around and go back. I can't remember who it was, but it's happened. So
yeah, I remember.
I don't have any problems.
And also. Yeah.
So, but go ahead, Julie.
I would also say that you mentioned about the timing started a week earlier than it normally starts. So just throwing that out there, like this year. So for example, this year normally it starts like the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th of the month.
Yeah. Start in the middle of May. I mean, start in the middle of May when
started on the 1st, and next year it's going to start on the 6th.
Okay.
It's usually the last 3 weeks of the month of May.
Right. So it's usually it ended earlier too. So yeah, I mean I see where you're coming from, Mike, because it is a tournament feel, and if someone can just add a superstar all of a sudden, it feels they leave a roster at 18 and they don't get. They're counting on players coming over, and then there's players who really want to play in this tournament. They don't get to play in it because they're holding these blank, empty roster spots. That to me is pretty unfair to those players. But like Kevin said, it's whoever can play hockey from your country is allowed to play. That's the bottom line. It's like that's how it goes.
It's a world championship. It's not the Spangler Cup or
right.
or something, a Deutschland Cup. This is for the championship of the world. So if it's the championship of the world, you should be able to bring whoever you have from your country. And sometimes guys are not available because of the NHL. 2 points I would like to make, though, about that with regard to the television. I mean, we're always guilty in our sport, and I'm a pragmatist about this, that, look, we're not some things are just bigger than our little sport. And this contract that NBC has with the English Premier League, guess what? It's big. It's a little bigger than the interest they have in the World Championship. So they're not going to turn that over to allow the IHF World Championships to go on. I mean, soccer is just a bigger sport than hockey. And so the NBC contract is so important to the NHL. And that's why they get to dictate. And I know it drives teams crazy that they don't know, but that's why NBC paid all that money for the opportunity to say we want these games at this point, and we're going to switch these games. And, the NBC has been a great partner. And I always say this all the time. There's revisionist history. People have forgotten, that we used to not have all the playoff games on television, and we do now. Anyway, the final point I want to make about Connor Hellebuyck is, and I wrote this in my column, just in 5 reasons why we should care about the bronze medal, and that is...
Which was excellent. I loved it, Kevin.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Julie. I wonder whether Connor Hellebuyck has played his way into being with Gibson as one of the goalies in the U23 World Cup team. Like, that second goalie, every time I brought that up, everybody goes, well, we're just going to have to, is it going to be Subban, Malcolm Subban? Everybody sees Gibson as number 1. Well, Hellebuyck played on a huge stage against NHL players, and Simon Schemberg of the, I guess he's with the Champions League now. He used to be with the IHF. He had a funny tweet where he just said, "Is this guy another Jim Craig?" Because he came in and he really was just a dominant player in this tournament. Well, if I'm sitting around and I'm USA Hockey now, I'm saying, hey, look at Connor Hellebuyck for that under-23 team, along with with Gibson. So maybe the goalies on that team are going to be 2 Americans, and that.
That'd be something.
And Kevin Cheveldayoff may have to consider him, more in the mix for Winnipeg's goaltending situation. I mean, that's been a question mark with with Hutchinson and Pavlik. I mean,
I really wonder about Pavlik now. That's the one I wonder about, because I know Pavlik is a great goalie at times, but he also is such a. I think that they would love to get rid of him. I feel like if they had the chance to get rid of him, in Winnipeg they would, because he has this ability to be incredible, but at the same time, he's
very inconsistent.
He's so inconsistent. He makes the Jets crazy, and you just look at when they have these 2 really good young goalies, and there is a market you're talking about before for maybe a starting goalie somewhere. Pavlik could be a Dubnyk type character. He could go. Pavlik could go in some place and become Dubnyk. He really could. He's got that kind of ability. He's got
in more than a few places, Zach. I mean, not only San Jose, but Edmonton and a few
right. And there's these cities that need that kind of goalie. So, I think the one thing about him though, and does anybody else feel like he commits way early? Like just watching him play as a goalie, it reminds me of like an open. I use open hockey a lot because I think it's always funny how open hockey kind of plays into like the actual hockey sometimes. But when you play open hockey, sometimes you play against a goalie who's always on his knees. Like he's just on his knees all the time when the puck's behind the net. He's on his knees all the time. Hellebuyck is on his knees all the time, and it works for him, and it's amazing. It really does. Somehow it works for him. He's very good on his knees. He's got quick waffle, quick love hand from his knees. He's really good at it, but I just wonder in the NHL if they would start picking that apart. Because it's such a big part of his game.
That's something stylistic that can be cured by a goaltender coach.
I don't think so. With him, it's his game. This is normally I would say I agree with you, but
no. Well, he did say, because I asked him, what have you learned here? And he goes, Julie, he's like, and he's like, so much. And a lot of it has to do with just, not really having a goalie coach.
Right.
They have a volunteer goalie coach at UMass Lowell.
Right.
AHL. They don't have goalie coaches in the AHL like they do in the NHL.
Right, that's true.
So he's like, I learned so much technically at here. He's like, I could tell you. He's like, but I don't think you'd understand. I said, that's a really smart observation. And he's like, but I feel like, I'm a completely different goalie. And the one thing that I will say about him that I really admire, one is he wants to learn and he wants to get better. So there are a lot of times when you find a player where they feel like they've learned it all, they don't really need to know anything else. There's a couple guys in college that feel that way, and I'm like, you're going nowhere very fast if you keep that up. But he's not one of them. He's like a sponge, still wanting to learn, wanting to get better. And the other thing that I think works to his advantage, much like John Gibson, that kid is cool as a cucumber.
Yeah,
nothing phases him. You talk to him afterwards, and it could be like this really intense game. He's like, "Hey, Joel, what's up?" And I'm like, "All right, let's roll," And I was just like, "So how was the game?" He's like, "Oh, I thought it was good. Got to face a lot of shots. The guys played in front of me. in my opinion, that is the best quality to have as a goaltender. Just somebody who
there's no question
lets
about
it roll
that.
right off.
And that's rare in goalies, so that's a big thing. I mean, a lot of goalies are nuts. Pecorini's the exception there. He's exactly that way, and that's what I always thought worked for him. But we got to get to the other Tampa. I can let you go, Jules, if you have to go. Feel free to go do your thing because we're going to talk a little bit Tampa Rangers, or you can hang out too. It's up to you.
I'm going to hang out for a bit. I have to leave in like 15 minutes.
Okay, good. We're going to be off before that for sure. Because we have Kevin's in New York, and we got to talk about the fact that we've got this game tonight. But I did want to touch on these two major news-taking stories that happened today. But yeah, I mean, we've got Game 2. What are your thoughts on the series, Kev? After Game 1, what did you see?
Well, first of all, I mean, the pace of the Game 1 was just phenomenal. I mean, it was just great. And you've got two offensive teams, the first and third ranked offensive teams in the league, squaring it off. And of course, it's become all about defense now. And but it was just great hockey. And I think. The way that the Lightning are going to approach this is they have to be better 5-on-5 against the Rangers, because when it was 5-on-5, it seemed like the Rangers were getting the better chances off that. So I thought the Rangers defense played a really strong game, and I find it interesting. If you would have said at the start of this season that the Rangers and Lightning are going to play a playoff game, and Girardi and McDonough are going to not be, out against Stamkos, you would have said, you're just crazy.
Yeah.
But they're on the Johnson line, and it just makes perfect sense because he's been more dangerous. And to me, what it's a reflection of is not Stamkos, but the fact that line is just a more complete line than the Stamkos line.
Yeah.
Stamkos is still Stamkos, but the triplets line is just phenomenal, all three guys. So, the goaltending has been excellent. Bishop played well, but Lundqvist is Lundqvist, and I think this is going to be a great series. I really do.
I think Tampa missed a big opportunity in Game 1. The Rangers, their top 4D are great. But Yandel and Dan Boyle, who was surprisingly in the lineup after the concussion in Game 7, or whatever he had in Game 7.
Yeah, not concussion, I guess.
They really didn't take advantage of him or Yandel's defensive problems. They didn't put a lot of pressure on them. I didn't think their forecheck was very good, and their only goal was on the power play. I mean, to follow what Kevin's saying, they have to step it up 5-on-5. They have to apply more pressure to the Rangers' D and not allow them to have breakout passes from their defensive zone. Because when they do, and when they connect with their forwards in stride, the Rangers' speed, their speed is part of their advantage, and they can hit guys like Kreider and guys like Jesper Fast and all these other players going into the Tampa zone. And Tampa's defense is not as quick as the Rangers' defense, and they're taking advantage of guys like Schuster and Colburn, who I don't think are as quick. So I think that Tampa has to forecheck a lot better. I think Tampa has no problem with the way Bishop played. I thought Bishop played really well and wasn't at fault for the game-winning goal. If they do what they did in Game 1 and just apply a little more forechecking, I think Tampa can split it at MSG and go back to Tampa tied 1-1.
Let me add a point about Boyle and Yandel, which is to me interesting. I was just looking at the advanced stats and who's leading the Rangers in Corsi rating, which is an indicator of puck possession. Yandel and Boyle.
Yeah.
Two defensemen who are.
Wow, that is pretty crazy because they're not getting played that much.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's when you're not being played a lot, it's a smaller sampling too.
Yeah, true, but they're getting played enough. I mean, they are. I mean, they're not getting played as much, but they're getting their ice time. I mean, they're getting.
Yeah, they were among the league leaders when I looked. So.
And the loss of Brian Boyle, I think, was a big hit for Tampa Bay because he's a very effective bottom six guy, big rangy player. Probably would have been motivated to play against his former team. I don't know what the status is for Game 2. I know that Zuccarello skated in practice for the Rangers, but they don't. Apparently, the reports are that he's not close to returning. But just the fact that he's on the ice, maybe that means he could step in a Game 6 or Game 7 scenario. So, I mean, the Rangers. I mean, they did everything that they wanted to do. They won the game by 1 goal. They're in their comfort zone, and Tampa's sort of got to make it more uncomfortable for them to equal the series.
I couldn't help but
Lightning aren't saying what Boyle's going to do tonight, and I think Zuccarello is still a long way away. That's what Vigneault said today.
Yeah. I mean, to me, experience came through in that first game. One team's been there before, one team hasn't. That's what it looked like. I mean, this Tampa team was in the conference finals not that long ago, but not a lot of these players were on that team. It's more of this is a Rangers team that was there last year, and I felt like you saw that in game one. There was just a little bit of extra effort in the Rangers that wasn't necessarily there, like them knowing what they had to do. But in the other series, which we'll touch on really fast, was that, and we'll get into more of this tomorrow. But I really felt like it was an example of teams playing who they played. The Ducks have played these other two teams who were good teams but not great teams, and then the Ducks were always looking at the Hawks. Like, we've got to beat the Hawks. The Ducks knew the whole time they had to beat the Hawks, where the Hawks knew they had to play their butts off to just get back past Nashville and Minnesota. And then when they get to Anaheim, I felt like there was a little bit of a letdown because Anaheim's not as big of a rival, not as big of a, they don't really know how to handle it. Where, with Minnesota and Nashville, Chicago knows that game. They know exactly what they're in for. They're fired up. They got their thing going. Anaheim's a different ball of wax, and it just felt like one team playing a little bit, like just a little bit of a drop-off in intensity, and another team just picking up their intensity because they finally were playing against the Hawks. Like, they finally were playing against the team that they really, that was going to challenge them. So I still like Chicago in that series, but I think that the first game, it'll be really interesting to see how they react to it. I guess how Chicago reacts to it in game 2. That was my thought on that. But
I mean, one thing that I said was a key to the series going into it, and it sort of played out last night. David Rundblad, 10 minutes ice time. Kimmo Timonen, 5 minutes and 15 seconds. They played Oduya, Jarmelson over 20 minutes, and Seabrook and Keith almost 30 minutes. And Rundblad, all he proved last night is he can break the stick on the post after he gets burned for basically the insurance goal, because he got walked around on. I think it was Nate Thompson's goal in the third period. I mean, Quenneville needs to get more quality ice time out of that bottom pairing. Otherwise, I think the advantage for Anaheim in terms of the depth of their forward lines. I mean, they got 4 forward lines that can either check a team into the ice or score goals. Yeah. And last night, it was their third line scored 2 of their goals. So the Blackhawks are going to have to find some solution to take a little bit of the heat off of Keith and Seabrook. Otherwise, this could be a quick series.
I'd go the other way. That's what they did before when they tried to shelter Leddy. They went to 5 defensemen. I think you got to go to 4.5 if you're the Blackhawks. I mean, Duncan Keith and Hjalmarsson can play forever. And Seabrook, we'll just have to play a few more minutes, and Oduya as well. The problem is Oduya, to me, is just not quite the same guy. He's certainly not a liability. He's a good player, but I'm just saying he's not as efficient as I've seen him in the past. But I think you're going to really have to just count on playing with 4.5, 5 defensemen. Because I thought Rundblad was a real liability, and as the playoffs have worn on, Timonen just has not shown that he's anywhere near the player that he was.
Which is crazy, because Timonen just a year ago was playing big time minutes, and for Finland, for US. I mean, obviously for the Flyers, it's obvious that he this is
Father Time gets you sooner or later,
It did. Well, that's all the time we have. But Julie, thank you so much for jumping on. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome so much. I'm glad I could be available to do it.
Absolutely. No, thanks. And safe travels back, okay?
Thank you. Wednesday.
And, yeah, thanks. We'll talk soon, guys. We'll be back again tomorrow. Remember, without the buzz, it is... Remember, without the buzz...
It's just...
There you go. That was It's Just Hockey. If you missed. See you later, guys.